Do you miss your home country? Do you miss your home country? I miss my home country. I'm from Bangladesh. I miss my friend, my neighborhood, school, my playground, its celebration and food. I moved to United States to have a better life including work, education and money. But these things don't make me happy. Being at my home country, big part is playing cricket. Cricket is my happiness in my life. I only get chance to play cricket in United States only 3 months out of the year. It is hard to find a cricket field to play in Massachusetts. These are 3 months I play cricket in Massachusetts State Cricket League, and the rest of the 9 months I am busy with my work and school. I plan to move to Bangladesh when I am.
This is Barbara, and today I'd like us to focus on a very important topic, and that is the very nature of defense. Of course, the word defense has many meanings. It can be applied to immunology. Our own bodies have defense that prevents all kinds of illnesses. Nations have defense, the world has defense. There's defense in kingdom of God. Not anyone can just come into kingdom of God. So the word defense has multiple dimensions and many meanings. And today there's a lot of discussion on social media about what is the nature of hate speech versus other kinds of speech. As you know, I don't like the word hate speech. I think, frankly, it's kind of ridiculous because it refers to what is logos as language, and hate refers to emotions. And of course, a language can express emotions, but in order to deal with emotions, we have to address emotional issues, and those are realm of our souls. So the word hate applied to logos without understanding of the nature of emotions within the soul doesn't really make any sense. And when you deal with responses to people being accused of hate speech, they are totally shocked, many of them, because what they were taught from early childhood was that the language expresses all kinds of emotions, and then the application of those emotions through actions is what makes an action hateful or not hateful. So there is a certain difference between the matters of the soul and matters of language, and there is also connection, and that connection is what I think is creating the confusion. But matters of the soul are very complicated because they refer to eternal part of our lives. So soul traditionally is known as the place that has the will, the emotions, and some people think that the mind, other people think that mind is a separate being within our lives, but that is something that is a matter of discussion. So you see that the will is within the soul. The emotions, the will is within the soul. Language is connected to mind, and also in the understanding that mind is part of the soul is connected to the soul. But the biblical teaching is that we are supposed to love God with our whole hearts, minds, and souls. Interestingly, God doesn't say with our whole language. And I've been thinking about it because language is what differentiates human beings from animals. There are of course other differences, but we can speak in the image of God that is in all of us. So we have the capacity to connect to the Word, which is God. Logos is sometimes spoken as the very origin of all creation. At the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and you can read it in the Bible, how awesome that is. So there's a certain privilege given to Logos, to language. And the way many people were educated traditionally, like I was, that the language is what should be mastered in beauty, nobility, but there's a place and time within language to talk about the emotional issues and matters of will from within the soul. When you read Shakespeare, you see how sophisticated this expression is. In histories, in tragedies, in comedies, other dramas, there's complexity of expression, and it is within the context that is understood as the realm of search for truth of what is happening within the soul and within the life of a person, of a city, of a nation. Now, let's suppose that someone would apply current standards of the so-called hate speech to Shakespeare. Shakespeare would be gone. So you see how ridiculous it is? So that's the wrong pathway. The way the moderation developed, that's wrong pathway. That's not the way to do it. We have to look at the roots of the emotional disconnections and the disconnections within matters of the will that has been happening throughout America and also in many parts of the world. And when we understand how to deal with emotional disconnections, we can apply language to bring in the connection and healing to it. Because right now, what is happening, there are emotional disconnections, and language that could potentially be used to bring in peaceful understanding over time is being cut off. So a certain vacuum is being created, and that is not a good thing. So I've been thinking about us looking at traditions of working things out from martial arts world. When there is a conflict, there is a fight, but the fight is not substitute for dealing with a conflict. It's a form of bringing resolution to the conflict, and the outcomes can be different in different cultures. I wanted you to look at the Wikipedia article. There are many books on martial arts and lots of amazing videos on YouTube and other social media. So you understand that every culture on earth has a form of martial arts. So that is one of the ways of dealing with conflict. But not only conflict within societies, but also within the body. There are many healing techniques that have been developed over thousands of years in different cultures to bring also healing to the body. And many of you who know ancient political philosophies, both from the West and the East, know that ancient philosophers thought that the center for bringing peace and balance is the soul. A very similar situation is in Judaism and Christianity. In Judaism, this is actually made very easy by God, because Israel is the Spirit of God, has the Spirit of God, and simply has to harmonize with it. Whereas Christians have to have presence of the Christ within the soul, within the being, in order to connect to that Spirit of God, and that is not easy. So Christians are between the world that doesn't know God and the world that knows God. And that created a situation in which God teaches Christians to be in an ongoing process of searching for God and forgiving. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. Forgive your brother, forgive yourself 77 times over. Why? Because God will not come to the soul where there's sin, but God will guide the soul and that person to be free from it, and that void that sin leaves is filled in by presence of Christ. So it's a process. And we were taught, I grew up in our Christian tradition, we were taught to be very patient with ourselves and with those around us in matters of speech, behavior, to pray for each other, to try to reconcile. When I was in grade school, we had to reconcile with friends we fought with, we didn't like. Our teachers were actually creating roundtables so that we talk to each other, apologize. It was a form of learning to deal with differences at the level of our souls, of our beings, using language as communication connector. And this is what we need to encourage social media to do. To develop understanding of sparring as something that is a learning experience. In martial arts, the martial arts definition in Wikipedia says, martial arts are codified systems and traditions of combat practiced for a number of reasons, such as self-defense, military and law enforcement applications, competition, physical, mental and spiritual development, as well as entertainment and the preservation of a nation's intangible cultural heritage. So you see here already the wisdom of all the cultures that developed martial arts, that there is a phenomenon of combat, and there is just no way to ban or dispose of participants of that combat, because then you would end up with no people. So the combat situation is codified. There are ways of conduct developed in which people can learn self-defense, can learn how to resolve differences, and then also to heal themselves after fights. So we have to become sophisticated in matters of conflict, because today many people think that the way to deal with conflict is to eliminate participants of the conflict. It really is crazy. You don't eliminate participants of a conflict. You create situations in which they can come to resolution of their conflicts and most desirably, that the resolution would be peace. And I think that we can learn from those traditions of diverse cultures. I was taught many martial arts from Asian traditions, primarily from China and from Japan. And both are royal traditions, Imperial China, Imperial Japan. And I know that many of you think about current form of government in China, but China and Japan are thousands of years old, and they developed ways of dealing with matters of emotions within the soul, with matters of the body and language in a very sophisticated way. And when I was studying martial arts from those countries, I understood how little we know about that noble art of self-defense that created knowledge about need to bring in connections between all kinds of tribes or people who are at conflict with each other. So there is a concept of peace in martial arts. And I think that today that is what we need to develop for social media, a concept of peace, what it is that would be desirable, peaceful presence of people with diverse points of view, diverse opinions, diverse ideologies, life experiences. So this is the way to go, not to develop censorship and banning and shaming, but to develop a system of connecting that raises the whole conversational presence of diverse parties to a higher level of interaction, at which that interaction will be connected to vision of peace. And that would eliminate the need to eliminate participants. And I think that this is the way to direct the thinking about how to deal with complexity of opinions in social media. I think that a situation in which people cut each other from conversations is creating a certain sense of loss of community participation. I've been in situations in which I got used to certain people and I wouldn't agree with their ideas, but I thought that it would be actually good for me to be acquainted with opposing views. And those people disappeared from social media, and I do feel a sense of loss. And I think that that is not the healthiest way to deal with differences. We have to have wisdom about diverse viewpoints. Just like when you go to a library and you see books from different time periods, different countries, and then you select some, you learn about the issues connected with this, and then a few years later maybe you are ready to look at some opposing views, but you don't eliminate books from the library because you disagree with the content of those books. So we have to learn that technique of peaceful combat. In other words, to understand that the reality is that people have different points of view, so they combat each other's views. And the question should be how to create a situation in which that combat is transformed into peace and actually friendship. And I know that it's possible. I really believe that we are in a time in which people are searching for that peace on internet, and we have to develop that vision of peace. I will be helping with that because it's a new way of interacting. It actually started with a vision of peace, and things were going really very well. And then, in my opinion, people with old-fashioned visions of peace started to bring in the old-fashioned ways of dealing with conflict, which was war, and then all kinds of disruptions started happening in social media. And I think that we have to be very cautious with application of those pre-internet ways to internet, because they are really two different measures of ways in which people connect with each other. So another aspect of dealing with bringing peace to this combative atmosphere in some social media places is to learn from martial arts how to connect the tradition with new techniques, with new ways. And that also would require conversations, analyses, application of intelligent thinking and intelligent vision to the fact that people are so different. And when you look at billions of people in the world from different heritage ways, different countries, different families, believing in different gods. Not everybody believes in God of Abraham, Israel, and Jacob, as I do. And then you see that the way to deal with those differences is through development of vision of peace that would bring in higher level ways of connection, so that the combative parties will be looking to that high level peace as a solution. And that is key to continuing universal participation in social media without banning of individual participants. So that's the way I would recommend we go. Because what happens when we have application of vision of peace is that people more easily connect with spirit of love, spirit of power, and spirit of sound mind, and develop self-control. And when there's fear of being banned, then a certain sorrow in social connections is being introduced, and that may lead to depression and even alienation and disconnection between people that leads to loneliness. When I was in college, I had people who disagreed with me. I love monarchy. I'm a person who believes in divine right of kings. And my friends had other ideas about social organization, and yet would go to parties, would go to pub, have beer together, talked about things. So it's possible to have great soul-to-soul connection in which language is not blocked and people can develop those ideas. Some of my friends that disagreed with me in college actually agree with me now. So if I had banned them from my life at that time, there would have been no hope of any reconciliation or development of mutual understanding. So I encourage you to read about martial arts. I encourage you also to participate in some, because that may be a way to learn discipline, self-control, understanding of the connection between different fighting forces. And then also it is a great experience to learn about the ways to resolve conflict within ourselves and between ourselves and other people. So thank you so much for listening to my meditation today on the topic of martial arts in the context of social media. And I encourage you to develop conscious awareness of how to bring emotional healing between you and those people you disagree with. It's not easy. And while doing it at the level of the soul and the mind, to keep linguistic communication open, to keep language open. That's what God does. God constantly talks to us through the Bible, through spirit of faith, through our prayers. So God never cuts his language from us. Why should we cut our language from those who disagree with us? Thank you so much for listening to those remarks, and see you here next week.